Good morning, gardeners. Right over here behind me is my Yacon. Y-A-C-O-N, sometimes spelled J-A-C-O-N, depends on how you want to work out the spelling. It is a sunflower from South America. It is one of the lost crops of the Incas, and it's related to the American Jerusalem artichoke sunflower from North America. But Yacon is really quite special. It's a very, very interesting crop, and one that is really beginning to catch on, but still underutilized and not very well known. Last year I planted a crop of it in relatively infertile soil. I got a yield. It was pretty good, but the plants were smaller than usual. This year, I didn't have that experience. My plants grew kind of gigantic. This is one here next to me. So a completely different experience this year. Now, one way to tell your Yacon is ripe is these are the flower heads right here. And when the flower heads all turn brown like this, you're finished. It's time to begin to harvest the tubers. Now, depending on your weather, the tubers can be left in the soil as needed to a point. But here, the rain will probably make some of them crack or rot, and so you're better to extract it. This is a very, very high-yielding plant. Right down here, you can see I've already been tearing into this one hill. Now, these were planted on flat grade, and currently we have a mound almost half a foot to a foot high where the root has just raised itself up out of the soil. Look at this. My goodness. A veritable explosion of Yacon. So I'm going to go in here on this one plant with a shovel and start digging, and we'll see what we find. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut back all the stalks. So they're not in my face. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is move over next door here and mulch this tangerine with it. There you see we have a nice mulch made from the Yacon plant. By the time I get done harvesting, we should have a good foot-deep mulch all the way around this tangerine. I highly recommend anybody gardening here in eastern Hawaii do not waste debris. Debris is exceedingly important because anywhere you don't have mulch on top of the ground here, you're going to end up with massive amounts of weeds. And so I really never remove anything from the field. Everything that comes down from these plants ends up being put back. The next thing we're going to do here, it's this stuff right here, this reddish looking junk that looks a lot like a Jerusalem artichoke. That's what we use to propagate the plant, and that's on the top. And so I'm going to remove most of that from the surface here as I go before we dig the tubers. And so the vast majority of the propagation material is connected to the stems we cut off. And so just by grabbing the stalks and pulling upward, most of it will come into your hands. Okay, there's most of the propagation pieces. Now I'm going to start to dig the produce. You see here we have a very presentable pile of the produce from this Yacon. That's quite a good one. That was from a single plant, and there were actually some damaged roots that I had to throw out that weren't any good anymore. They'd taken holes in them, gathered up water, and had rotted. What's down here on the ground looks like it's in good shape. So Time to bucket it up, wash it up, and let's taste the Yacon. Well, here I have the harvest from one plant. Two flats over here on the right contain propagation material. Two flats over there on the left contain the harvest of edible portions from the plant. Now, I'm sure there are many of you out there who are familiar with this vegetable. Here I have a tuber that I have polished up real nice with a brush and water so we can taste it. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, let's do a taste test here in front of the camera. There, you see the inside, beautifully white. Generally, I don't eat the peel. It generally has some dirt on it. And I think it tastes a little bit resinous, the peel does. The rest of the produce is much milder, so I usually remove the peel. It avoids getting soil in my mouth. So I tend to treat it a lot like it was a potato, which originates in the same part of the world, by the way. Interesting, huh? Here we go. Cute, huh? Well, very wet and refreshing. A lot of water. Crunchy texture. Crunchy texture somewhat similar to water chestnut. It's very close to the texture of a water chestnut if you've ever had a fresh one. Not the ones in the cans. Those are nasty. It's also quite a bit like jicama, but jicama is a little more fibrous, not quite as wet, and it's not as sweet, jicama. Jicama does not have the sugar this has. So this contains a number of fairly interesting types of sugars and starches. In general, this is considered a low glycemic index food, but it's sweet. And so this is really a boom for people who maybe want to lose some weight, people who like sweet stuff but have problems with blood sugar spiking, you know. It can be added to fruit salads, raw. It'll work in there. It can be added to conventional salads. I like to put it in cubes, put it with lettuce and carrots and stuff. Yesterday, I made a salsa, similar to what you might make with a jicama, using the Yacon, cut it to tiny cubes, with hot peppers, the bishop's cap pepper, cilantro, onions, salt, and lime juice. The root has a tendency to begin to lose a nice, clean, white color after it's been cut for a while. It oxidizes. I found that by adding lime juice on top of it, it will stop that. Another very interesting way you might eat this is a Jicama Pea Salad. Just plain old, either round English garden peas or cut discs of sugar snap with cubes of jicama. Little bit of onion in there, a mayo dressing, some black pepper over the top, and if you like it, bacon can be added to that too, but it doesn't need to be. It's just fine the way it is. It's also really good in a stir fry. You can cut it up, use it just like you'd use a water chestnut. It's quite flexible. But if you take these, you peel them, and you put them through a juicer, then boil the sap down on the stove like it was maple sap, you'll end up with this syrup that is extremely sweet, very tasty, and it's actually very easy to use. It doesn't have a lot of off flavors or anything. Use it the same way you might use the blue agave syrup, for instance. Similar, it is actually a lower glycemic index than the blue agave because it has fructose, which is a slow digesting sugar, It also does have some sucrose, so when you put it in the mouth, immediately you do taste that sweetness, but it's not a lot of sucrose in here. However, it contributes to the sweet taste in this stuff, but it doesn't pump your blood sugar up, so there's a lot to be said for that. Easy plant to grow, not bad to eat. The only complaints I can make about it is the types of sugars that are in here. When they get into my intestines, they produce a lot of gas. I can fart like a racehorse on this stuff. Anyway, not everybody gets that reaction, and I do believe from year to year the crops vary a little bit as far as how much of the gassiness is created by this stuff. Not painful, just noisy. Anyway, aloha. Maybe we'll make some Yacon syrup later on again. We can also look back. Last year I did Yacon syrup. There is a video on that subject. I highly recommend anybody that's interested in this, you can contact me. It does not produce seeds. I'm sorry. The seeds are sterile. I've never been able to get one of them to germinate either here or in California. Never. And so it has to be propagated vegetatively. Anybody needs Yacon here on the Big Island, come see Bill. Aloha. Happy gardening.